Hello everybody, this is Olivia Parks from Dorothy Pico Nature Center. Today for Outdoor Skills we are going fishing. One of the first things you must consider before you go fishing is where you want your fishing spot to be. Today we chose to fish at Turtle Lake in Stone Park. Luckily here in Woodbury County we have many great fishing locations such as Browns Lake, Snyder's Bend, Little Sioux Park, and Southwood Conservation Area. Some people choose to fish from the shore, while others choose to fish from boats or kayaks. Before you're able to head out to your fishing spot, you need to make sure you grab your tackle box and bait. In my tackle box, I try to keep all essential things for fishing. Some of the things I like keeping in it is extra line, just in case you catch your monster legendary fish, but your line breaks while you're trying to reel it in, or if you just happen to get it caught on a log. The next thing you might need are some hooks of all different sizes. You need these different sizes of hooks just so you're able to catch different sizes of fish, because they all have individual sized mouths, so they need different hooks. Another thing that you might find essential is bobbers, or you might also call them floaters. These are very nice to have because when a fish bites on your line, you're able to see that the bobber is sinking and you know that it's time to reel to catch your fish. Another thing that you would be attaching to your fishing line are sinkers. So sinkers are what will help your hook sink down in the water so it's able to get to those very deep areas where you're able to see fish nibbling at your worms or other bait. Some people like keeping plastic worms in their tackle box. Personally, I'm not a huge person to keep plastic things in my tackle box just because I do not like using plastic too much, but we do have some other lures that we use. We actually call them some ties that our fly fishermen have made, and they kind of look like insects or flies. Something I find to be necessary is a needle nose pliers. So this is helpful for when you get that one fish that gets their hook caught way down in their mouth. So you're able to grab those needle nose pliers, reach down with them instead of your fingers, and get that hook out of that fish. And just in case that hook doesn't end up in that fish, it is always smart to make sure you have a small first aid kit, especially for when that hook gets in your thumb, or if you do scrape yourself on other materials that you go find while going fishing. And that small first aid kit just needs some bandages, maybe some antibiotic ointment, and maybe some waterproof medical tape. I always make sure to keep sunscreen and bug spray in my tackle box just because it does get to be a long day when you have a lot of bugs nibbling at your ankles and you're getting a sunburn. So lakes and ponds are a breeding ground for a lot of mosquitoes and other bugs that like biting you. So keeping that sunscreen and bug spray in your tackle box will just be a little thank you for when you're out at your fishing spot. Something else that a lot of people kind of forget about is a line cutter. We have a couple different line cutters. We have some scissors, and of course we have nail clippers. A knife would also work perfectly fine, but this is for the one time that you get your line snagged on something and you just happen to not be able to get it unhooked. That's when you want to go ahead and cut your line and make it more efficient so you can start up and start fishing again. And finally, I'm going to be showing you our gloves and a rag. I like keeping these both in my tackle box because it helps clean up after a big mess. Everybody has those times where you grab a fish and you kind of get a little bit of slime on your fingers and you just kind of want to wipe it off. Or you might have that person who doesn't really want to grab a fish, so keeping those gloves in there is good. And when you are breaking up worms or you happen to gut a fish, having that towel there to clean up your hands and wash them a little bit. And the last thing I have here is a fish stringer. So fish stringers are for you to string up your fish after you're catching it for the day. You're able to string them up on here and leave that in the water so your fish stay nice and fresh and alive. And then you're able to carry them home nicely on that stringer. So now we're going to go over the basics of casting. So we're going to start with the first step, which is face the area of the water that you intend to aim your cast. And it's more comfortable typically if you have one foot, which is your non-dominant foot, slightly in front of the other foot. Next, you will want to reel the line clockwise until your lure or bobber is about a foot in front of the rod tip. This will put the line at the right position for a good, strong cast. Grip the handle of the rod with your dominant hand's thumb just below the reel button. Then you will want to press and hold the button using the thumb of your casting hand on the back of the reel. Next, you will swing your casting arm until your hand is by your side. Let the movement come from your elbows rather than your shoulder, just because it will allow more of a snap at the end of your cast. This should be about 90 degrees away from the direction you are intending your cast to go. Be sure that you do keep your rod above waist level at all times, because otherwise it might hook the ground. And also be aware of your surroundings to prevent hooking others or other objects nearby. Then sweep the rod forward quickly in one fluid motion and tip the rod roughly 30 degrees from the front of where you would like to cast, what is commonly known as the 10 o'clock position. Release the button, and then you should see your lure start traveling forward. The line will continue to unspool rapidly until you do hit that reel again, or it hits the water. If your bait does simply just fall onto the ground right in front of you, you probably hit the button a little late, or if it flies in a different direction than you intended, it might have been too soon. It may be a little tricky at first, but once you've done it a few times, you'll get the hang of it very quickly. The final thing we'll be talking today about is catching a fish. We'll be going over the need to know how of taking a fish off a hook and what to do once you do have that fish. So of course, we have to start off with getting that worm on that hook. Right here, we did use worms while fishing. A good technique for putting a worm on a hook so you do catch that fish is kind of pretending like that worm is a sock and you're putting that sock on a foot, aka your hook. In that case, a lot of times fish won't be able to break it off of your hook easy and it'll make it a little tougher. So here we have a bluegill fish. I can tell because of the spines on its back. So she's gonna go ahead and try to lay those spines down as she tries to grip the fish. She's very careful because it does hurt a little bit to get poked by those spines. Now she has a very good grip on that fish, and she's gonna remove that hook from its mouth. Unharmed and happy, that fish is able to be released now. For our last video, we do get to see her take off another fish. So she's going to be a little quicker about this one, just so you know, if a fish is out of water too long, it will suffocate because it needs the water to breathe. She gets that hook out of that fish's mouth, and when she goes to release it, she gets down on the dock so she's able to reach that water and releases it gently back into that water. This leaves the fish unharmed and swims away safely. Please follow us also on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube to watch our other virtual programs.
Thank you for joining us this week for Outdoor Skill. I hope you guys have a great fishing trip.